Hi, and welcome back to Live Chat with me, Lee Kim, the host of the Paranormal Zone. Well, it's that, but how do they say it? It's that time, and it's 9:30 p.m. Thursdays. So, um, we just watched Space Exorcism at this location called Batu Bergantung in Penang, Malaysia. Um, so let me see. It's actually this episode is actually a part two of two episodes on space exorcism. So let me just tell you a little bit about the one before, where we went to a place also in Penang called Rilang Mansion, and we talked about space exorcism there, and that was just a beautiful mansion that unfortunately there were deaths that took place there, and the space had witnessed the death and um, the death, the, the, the emotions involved there were um, despair, anger, and sadness. Okay, so before you know, what I would like to talk about is basically space. um, Generally, guys, you, me, everyone, we kind of take space for granted. Like, and when I say take for granted, it brings me to a very recent experience, which is the annual event that we do on Malaysia Day by Kechara, where we pick up rubbish off the streets on Jalan Chamang in Bentong. And I was involved, and um, the rubbish I pick up: plastic bags, bottle caps, uh, cans, bottles, tons and tons of plastic bags. I mean, so much plastic bags, and I totally am for the people who are saying no more plastic bags, especially supermarkets who do that. When I say that we take space for granted, what I'm talking about is look at what we do to our environment. That is one way we take space for granted. What I would like to tell you is, after my experience in filming Space Exorcism, I learned that space is one place that is active, and we should never take it for granted, because it witnesses what happens, it witnesses who passes through the space, it witnesses the emotions that we carry, it witnesses the thoughts that we carry. And the moral of the story for me is always be positive, and carry positive emotions into every space that you go to, so that you create that. But okay, so let me just talk about space. And there are many definitions. There's, of course, architectural space. There is space where people build on. There is holy spaces, and um, churches, Buddhist temples, our Muslim mosques, and things like that. So, but I particularly like this shall I say, definition or explanation of space from a spiritual point of view. Listen to this. If the physical world contains objects such as water and stones, these are but material incarnations of spiritual realities in the higher spheres of creation. If the physical world consists of four kingdoms: mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, then these four gradations of vitality likewise exist within the realm of the spirit. And if our physical selves inhabit physical phenomena of time and space, these are the product of a spiritual time and a spiritual space inhabited by our souls. I like this definition because it really kind of sums up what you have watched on that episode. Um, so that was my little sharing about the definition of space in relation to the work that I've done on the Paranormal Zone on space exorcism. Okay, what do we have here? Uh, the question is, did Chan Mei Lin, the lady who killed herself, leave the space after the prayers? What would happen to her? All right. Um, As you have seen, she killed herself at that location about 70 years ago. She was a victim of rape. She was raped by many, okay, let's not be dramatic, several soldiers of that during that time. And she had contracted a disease after being raped, and she was pregnant. So she committed suicide. And her soul, spirit, lingers in that area until now. So, to answer your question, yes, according to the Taoist master, Master Kek, she went to a better place. It is possible, I mean, we can't confirm it unless, she actually tells me herself. But I wish not of that. But basically, she would have gone to a better place simply because of the power of prayers. The power of prayers done in that manner allows her soul to be at peace. And when the soul is at peace, the soul will go to a better place. Which then brings me to explain how one becomes a spirit. At the point of death, if your mind lingers and hangs on to something and you don't let go, at the point of death when you're not at peace, that is when that moment of agony, despair, desperation would create the causes for you to come back in a spirit form. So similarly, on that note, what happens is when you have prayers, it appeases the soul so that the soul could go to the next level of going to a better place. Now, here's the tricky part from my experience and learning in the 4 years of filming The Paranormal Zone. Us human beings have a tendency to want quick fixes. We have a tendency to ask the supernatural, ask the spirits, ask the gods, the Buddhas for help. And sometimes we want it quick. And then we hear that if you pray to a spirit, it is faster, simply because these spirits are not enlightened and that they will grant you wishes because it's like a barter trade. They are lonely spirits wandering and lost. And they want attention. So attention is by praying to them and offering them, incense, prayer papers, and sometimes even food. So when they get that attention from you, and us being humans, with one of the tendencies being greedy, we want something from them. So it is a barter trade. So on that note, to answer the question, what happens to her next? Even though the prayers which took place that evening would have sent her to a better place, all you need is at that same place, at that same space, someone to come along and call on her, because she's been there for 70 years and people have been calling on her for 70 years. They come and they call on her and they make offerings and they burn prayer papers and they burn food and they offer it up to her. She might come back. So it's like a little vicious cycle. Yeah? Could she have crossed over without the prayers? I can't answer that in definitive. I guess if her karma to be a ghost, which is normally when you're in the ghost realm, it's for years and decades and a long, long time. I guess she can cross over when that time is over, but prayers do help. If there weren't prayers, would she cross over? Possibly, but much later. Okay, you're welcome. I hope that helped. So the other thing you would notice with recitation of mantras, Um, in today's time, we understand mantras very much on um, for yoga and meditation, and that I know people talk about mantras often because of meditation, yoga, and that stuff. But in this context, as you have seen here in this episode, is they recite mantras. Okay, so I was like thinking. Many people have asked me what's mantras, and I've always said, it's prayer of a certain deity that you believe in a melodious way, and mainly in Sanskrit, Hinduism, practiced mainly in Hinduism and Buddhism. But I think that I was going through my guru, His Eminence Chan Rinpoche's blog, and I feel a good definition of mantras, and I thought to read that to you so that we all understand the meaning of mantras and the power of mantras. Mantras are mystic formulas that carry tremendous blessing power and exist in all religions. Reciting these holy words can tap into the source of the divine and connect with sacred energy that helps transform our minds. So personally, for me, my mantra is that of my Dharma protector Toje Shukden, which is Benza Wiki Bitana Soha. And trust me, I have recited this mantra many, many, many times throughout my 4 years filming the Paranormal Zone. It was not because I was constantly battling spirits, no, 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 but mainly because it's protection. And in order to do what I do, in order to be in a location, in order to interview the people, in order to experience the environment and to actually connect with what's going on, to give my audience the deepest information I can possibly find, it is to stay calm and to feel protected. And the mantra of Doje Shukden, which is Benza Wiki Pitana Soha, always gives me that calmness and that protection. So the question I have here is, if you understand that attitude during death impacts where we want to go, then assuming we can, controlling our mind during death can help us to go to a better, that was a motorbike. Yeah. Let me read that again. We understand the attitude during death, then controlling our mind during death. Yes. Which leads me to the last line of the definition of mantra from Rinpoche's blog. Reciting the holy words can tap into the source of the divine and connect with the sacred energy that helps transform our minds. You see, the mind is a very, very, very powerful tool, which is why in most of the teachings, in spiritual teachings, in religion, it's about transformation of the mind. When we can transform our thoughts, our perception and attitude, which takes place in our mind, we will change a lot of outcome in our lives. How we choose to look at something, how we choose to interpret something, how we choose to handle a situation is all in the mind. And then from the mind, we're able to control, manage our emotions, and from there, we'll be able to manage our speech. So similarly on that note, with relation to death, what I have understood is at the point of death, if you have been a spiritual practitioner and you accept death, when the time comes, you're able to let go. You don't hold on, and your mind is not in a state of anguish, desperation, anger. You're able to let go and accept. That gives your mind peace at the point of death, which then allows your soul to go peaceful, therefore creating the causes for better reincarnation, not into the lower realms of hell and the spirit world. But then again, we cannot deny or ignore the fact of karma that has also accumulated through time. So it is very important, like Rinpoche taught us, it is not at the point of death to be holy and spiritual, but it is all the many years before death to be spiritual, to do meritorious acts, to be kind, compassionate, loving, and caring, to live life with purpose and to benefit others. So, what's next? After the spirit leaves this plane, where do they go? A better place, reincarnate, heaven, etc.? This question makes me feel like I am like the immigration officer at the heavenly gates or the hell gates. Okay, wait. Well, I think I may have answered that kind of earlier. I believe in reincarnation. There are some people who don't. And so my understanding from a Buddhist perspective is there are 6 realms: hell, spirit, animal, human, demigod, and God. So the top 3 are kind of like our form, human, and then the lower is non-human. Certain faiths believe in heaven and hell specifically, and then I think we all wish that we all go to a better place. And from what I understand is that the better place would be to return, the better place would be enlightenment, the state of enlightenment, nirvana, they want to call it, a place where we no longer come back in this form, a place where we have achieved enlightenment, and that would be nirvana, I guess, or heaven, or in a broader sense, a better place. Okay, so during this episode of space exorcism, what I learned that I bring forth with me all the time is that we need to respect the space we are in, and we play a role in creating what happens in that space. And that space is like a memory box because it records and it witnesses what we do in terms of what we say, how we act, and even deeper, it records and witnesses our thoughts and emotions, those that we think are intangible, that goes on in our heads, all those thoughts that go on in our head. Oh my God, look at that girl, she's prettier than me, she's got a really big butt, or that guy goes, oh, he's richer than me, what is he doing with life that he's more successful? All these thoughts of one emotion called jealousy. And then, we have all these negative thoughts. Oh, how I wish lightning would strike this person the next time they utter words and stuff like that. Sounds dramatic, but that each of us have been guilty in one way or another having thoughts like that, where you wish onto someone something you won't wish upon yourself. Yeah. So space records all that. And as a result, space contains all that, which then explains how come certain places that has a lot of human traffic, such as hotels, such as airports, such as very heavy traffic, public places like shopping centers. Why is it sometimes you go in there and you go, oh, I feel something. Oh, it feels weird in here. Oh, it suddenly feels cold. I have goosebumps. It's because you have walked into a space that has recorded and witnessed a lot of emotions, and possibly negative emotions. So when you step foot in there, especially if you are in a state of mind that is not at peace, or you have anxiety, or you feel low, or you feel down, generally negative, you pick up these negative things. And then you feel it, and then you add on to what that same space is recording. So the human consciousness is responsible collectively to change space. So if each and every one of us is conscious that we can make a difference to the space that we go and occupy, then I say always be positive, carry positive thoughts, carry positive emotions, so that you have that a bit, so that you exercise your right to make a space positive, so that the next person gets to experience that. It is like a domino effect, and you don't even know the changes that you can impact, the people you can impact simply by being positive. Okay? Exorcism is depicted to be so violent, scary, and dramatic. In my, it is quite pleasant and peaceful. Are those scary exorcisms just Hollywood? Okay, before I answer that, hello from Kuala Lumpur to someone coming in from Perth. Pixie, is that right? Hello. Okay, back to that question from Li King. I would like to say that, my program is peaceful and serene and pleasant because I'm peaceful, serene, and pleasant. But then again, you're my sister, I can't lie. So occasionally, that may not be so. Anyways, I think it's all about intention. And similarly, what I said earlier about space. I do not go into a space thinking, yeah, I'm going to catch something. Yeah, I'm going to force something out. I'm going to make some ghost and some spirit come into my space right now and be filmed. I don't have that intention. I don't have that motivation. I go to a space respecting it, not expecting anything. That's not true. I have some expectations, but I don't force it upon the beings that are present in that space, although I may not be able to see them with my eyes. I go into the space calm, I go into the space undemanding, unlike my regular days. I go into that space willing to explore and learn. And I think because of that, my crew has the same kind of attitude, and there's 12 of us. And when we go in there, and then of course the master that I work with are normally not diabolic, I hope. And so we go in with that same attitude. As such, we create the same result. Are scary exorcisms only just about Hollywood? No. There are exorcisms that are very, very harsh, very, very hard, and some screaming and some, I like to call it heavy duty prayers. It even looks, it's scary, but it's prayers. And the reason is normally it is a method. It's just a method in which that respective master has adopted, and normally it is in response to the energy of the particular spirit. There are spirits, that are not friendly, that are not calm. There are spirits that are diabolic, mischievous, and evil. So I guess it depends what's being carried by the spirit in that space that results in how the method is adopted to clear that space. Exorcisms are different across different religions and different cultures simply because the cultures and the religions are different. how do I say this? When we study a subject, for example, medicine, you're a doctor, you're a surgeon, and there is a medical way to treat a certain disease, okay? However, when you're dealing with different people, different patients from different walks of life, different cultures and religion, you you know how you would have dealt with the diagnosis of the disease and delivering the diagnosis and telling the treatment will be a little bit different in a different culture and mindset of the people, because it is the level and the way in which people understand things, and the way a person understands certain situations. Example, when it comes to spirits and ghosts and rituals and you know and practices, it's very different depending on culture, religion, and faith systems. Um, and as such, the method of exorcism will therefore differ as well. How do I say this? In Taiwan, when I was filming in Taipei, people there are extremely okay, they're superstitious, and they definitely believe in spirits and the unseen, and they're very open towards it. So you could address a spirit situation and talk about how somebody in a restaurant who has the third eye is able to see a ghost eating at the next table next to a person who's drinking soup. A conversation like this wouldn't be totally bizarre in Taiwan because people are open to it. That's their culture. However, when I was filming in Yogyakarta, such topics such as spirits and ghosts, it's understood. They know it exists, but it's not spoken so openly. It's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more hush-hush, a little bit more secretive, because they feel that if they are too open about it, it's disrespectful and it invites the spirit or ghost to their homes. You know? So similarly, in that way that I learned, it would also affect exorcism, which is also a method of just clearing and getting rid of spirits. Okay. um, yes. So the question, the method may be harsh, but the motivation need not be, and that the motivation comes from compassion. That is absolutely true. Masters who deal with spirits are compassionate because they understand that their rituals, their prayers, their mantras is to help them go to a better place. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, it takes a lot more sessions and not just one to let the wandering spirit eventually rest. Sometimes it takes many, many times and a long, long time as well. It's because the spirit has been there for a long, long time, and whatever accumulated karma through many lifetimes have led them to that state of being a ghost. So masters who clear and purify space have a lot of compassion. I don't know why the Taiwanese are so open to talking about spirits and having them around. Maybe it's because I don't. Okay. I did a few episodes in Taiwan, and if I recall clearly, it has something to do with their history and how. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. And how many years, maybe a century or so ago, the battles of the kingdoms and the heavenly gods, and it called upon the divine powers and the spirits and all to win over wars or something like that. I think Taiwan was in season 4. Oh, okay. You gotta watch the Taiwanese episodes then to understand the history. Um, uh, but it had something to do with their faith system that I think had a lot of origin from Taoism, that believed in spirits and believed ancestor worship. Ancestor worship is a very strong belief system in their culture, and as such, ancestor worship led them to also uh, accepting, recognizing, and maybe even worshiping the spirits as well. Okay, ancestor worship, yes. The ancestor worship is very strong in Taiwan, and therefore it leads to a lot of their belief systems with spirits, and therefore being open about it. My memory served me just right before 10 p.m. All right. Thank you for tuning in. I hope there were more of you watching than asking questions. And next week, same time, 9 p.m., there will be a broadcast of an episode. I think this one is something to do with trance, a mystic vision. So tune in. And after that, a live chat. And I hope to see more of you. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. See you next week. And then I try to turn this thing off. Good night, everyone.